President Pompeo, also known as the Secretary of State, strikes Iran, and that's just the beginning of all that has happened. This only the second week of the new decade, 2020. But don't forget the impeachment of one Donald Trump, or election 2020, just some of the topics we explore on the Halli Casser-Jayne Show, when I, Halli Casser-Jayne, and my partner in politics, former White House correspondent Matthew Cooper, tackle it all, and Donald Trump, too. We even travel overseas to discuss the Royals crisis. Stay tuned. It's sure to be a wild ride. Here we go. Okay, Matt, nothing new happened this week.
Yeah, very quiet, Hallie. We'll dig something up.
God, I am telling you, you think it can't get worse? It gets worse and worse and crazier. It's like we're in a whirling dervish barreling towards something, and I'm concerned. Because I think we're barreling someplace we really should be afraid of. We start with Iran. I mean, hello, where did this come from, right?
Right.
All of a sudden, he goes in and I don't know whether to use the word assassin or murder. The guy was a state employee, right? So Soleimani then becomes not necessarily, quote unquote, a terrorist, in the true sense of the definition of terrorist, because he's a state terrorist. So assassinated him, murdered him. I'm not sure it's a word, but the guy's dead. And we are now in everything in Iran, in the Middle East. Again, crazy. This president who said he just wanted to pull us out.
Right. And don't forget Iraq.
And of course, in Iraq. I mean,
now, you know.
So talk to me. I know you asked me off air where I was, and I said, let's wait till we get on air on it. Where are you? And then I'll tell you whether I think it was the right move or whatever. What are your thoughts?
Well, look, I mean, the Iranian regime is expansionist, dangerous, hostile to its neighbors and to the United States. Soleimani is responsible, by all accounts, for the deaths of many Americans by backing all the Shia militias in Iraq that killed a lot of Americans. He is a bad guy. The question isn't that he's a bad guy or that Iran needs to be restrained. The question is whether killing him in a deliberate strike was good for the United States. And I think there was a pretty big consensus in the foreign policy establishment, certainly among Democrats, that this was not, that this would take us into uncharted territory, that the administration, it's very easy to get into these things, harder to get out, and the administration hadn't thought through the very next steps at all. And so I thought it was unwise, to say the least, to do this. Now, the fact that we're not lobbying, the fact that we're not in an all-out war today on Thursday does not mean this was any less of a mistake.
Right, I agree with that.
We don't know where this is going. The Iranians often take their time with responding. They play a very long game. And there's no proof that this is all over and this worked out just fine, as the president seemed to be gloating. So I think it was pretty dangerous move, and that's my basic take.
Okay, reckless comes to mind, with the caveat that everything that I have read says that Mike Pompeo had this as something he wanted to do before he left public service, no matter what. That said, I was against the Iran agreement. I thought it was a terrible agreement, and I thought they could have done much better.
Right.
And so that's where I was on that. And in a way, all of this kind of goes back to that, of course. But I never believed that Trump was right in pulling out of an agreement that was signed. Now, he could have gone further, and he could have renegotiated within the confines of that agreement, but to just pull out, your word is your honor, not among thieves like Trump, but, You know what I'm. So if that's the core of this, if that's the start of this in some respect, that this whole thing is Trump's making in a way, and his game playing on the Soleimani thing is just utterly wag the dog as far as am concerned, because I can't find a reason, and apparently there was no imminent reason, which we'll discuss in a minute, for him to do this. So one has to say, is it wag the dog? Has he lost his cookies? Is there a team of lunatics around him? The foreign policy people who apparently put this on the table as an option, which is their worst option, and he picked. Matt, this just really speaks to something about the American government right now that everybody should be terrified of. Not just Trump. And just naming it as Trump in a way, I think, is dangerous because that's where the divide is. But if you start talking about an ineffective, inefficient, government, period, then I think you can take the conversation into a place it needs to go. You have a thought on that?
Yeah, I think, you've got people. Yeah, if you thought Pompeo was an adult in the room.
Oh, never.
And, was in some sense, restraint. He was arguing for the aid to be released to Ukraine. He did a couple of things that were not purely Trumpian, but there's clearly no guardrails when, these folks are in the room with Trump, and that's deeply worrisome. I'm surprised that, or maybe I shouldn't be, that, Pompeo is I believe, number one in his class at West Point, really favored this and thought it would not be met by, a huge reaction in Tehran, which, the other thing we haven't talked about are shots of those funerals, that funeral in Tehran for Soleimani.
I'm sorry, it was the what?
The funeral for Soleimani.
Well, just because then you can get into the effects of this.
Yeah, I don't think.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think we did the opposition in Iran any favors.
No, and you pushed that to defending their own. You did the same thing in Iraq, which we'll talk about in a minute.
Yeah.
No, I don't think there's anything good out of this, and anybody who wants to spin it that there is, listen, I keep saying, and I know I keep saying insane, crazy, but it is. It's none of these decisions are rooted in rational, normal, cognitive reasoning. None of it. And the response by senators and representatives in the House on the Republican side are as irrational and crazy as the actions. Can we just talk about Lindsay Wagner? Lindsay, yeah, I don't know. Where did that come from? I saw in a Hallmark movie recently that she came to
We're dating ourselves. Yes.
She was in a Hallmark movie over Christmas. I'm
glad she's getting work.
Yeah, she looks good, by the way. Ms. Lindsay, who I call him now. Yesterday he comes out and says that the speech that Trump gave, speech that some have called Sniffles the Clown speech can be compared to Reagan and the tear down that wall speech.
Right, okay. Right.
And
not quite.
And I say to myself, okay, when we get to that crazy,
yeah,
we're in trouble.
Look, Reagan opposed the Panama Canal Treaty that Jimmy Carter signed vehemently. Now, when he succeeded Carter, he didn't pull out of the treaty. He didn't drop a couple of bombs on Panama.
No. So, you could get into what's this obsession that Trump has with Obama. which a lot of this is about. I mean, if you look at what he's done in his 3 years, years in office,
Absolutely.
every move is to undo every single thing that Obama did. And I keep going back to that Oval Office meeting with them when it looked like they were going to be palsy-walsy and they were going to be respectful to each other. And then within 48 hours, was it, something horrible happened, and that was the end of that. And it seems to me that if you're looking for a reason for all the crazy that Trump does, it always gets back to what Obama did, including his saying in that speech yesterday morning. Didn't he say to the tune of, we gave him all the money that Obama
Yeah,
gave him
he's obsessed with the money thing.
Right. And the money, of course, was the Iranian money that was being held in check. I also, and I know I'm jumping all over, but there's so much here, right? There's also even them backtracking now, with Mike Pence backtracking and saying, even though nobody was killed in the Iranian strike, although they certainly proved that they had missiles that could fly very far. Now, and nobody was, and if they wanted to, they could have. They're saying they wanted to and they missed. That's this morning, Mike Pence doing his dutiful lick spittle.
Right.
You got anything on that? I mean,
I'm surprised he didn't say that the great and mighty Trump diverted the missiles in midair.
I was shocked about that myself. I thought for sure he would say that. No, a plane was diverted in midair.
Right. Or wasn't. Yeah. But he's as you said, just such a lick spittle.
Oh, but they all are. They all are.
Look, just because the Iranians chose not to make this the moment of supreme confrontation doesn't mean that they won't. They responded to Israeli assassinations, months and years later in the 80s.
Yeah, they're patient people.
They're very patient. Yeah. They're playing a long game. Yeah. I think they had to do something quickly from Tehran's point of view. Look, we'll see. I hope there is not a war. No one wants it. But look, these things are very complicated. It's easy to drop a bomb. It's harder to figure out what happens next, even for the best administrations. There's nothing to indicate these guys thought about what happens next or 3 steps down the road.
Why do you think they did it now?
Oh, I think, look, it could be because of impeachment. It could be because Pompeo's been arguing for it, and he finally prevailed because the Iranians killed an American contractor. I don't know, but
I think that the timing of this thing is certainly worth noting. And the other thing is that I have not heard the press focus on, Matt, and that is they did this on Iraqi soil.
Well, right. Let's just talk about Iraq.
Right, go ahead. Go for it.
17 years after American troops went into Iraq for the second time to, try to oust Saddam, 17 years later after mission accomplished, we're now being kicked out of Iraq. It's like the helicopters leaving off the embassy roof in Saigon.
For sure.
Practically. It's unbelievable, this turn of fate. So, look, I think wiser heads always knew the invasion of Iraq was going to strengthen Iran. Now it's just, now it's a hard and fast alliance between Iran and Iraq. And we've made everything much more dangerous. And the amount of blood and treasure we've spent in Iraq in 2 wars, and now we have to basically leave.
Somebody said to me, okay, if you want to finish, but I was going to.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead. Go.
Yeah, and I'll just say, all you had to do was see all those Iraqi troops standing on the sidelines while the U.S. Embassy was under siege a couple of weeks ago. It's a horrifying situation.
Well, a friend of mine said that what she finds so egregious in all of this and so weird in all of this is the fact that it is clear how we are losing our control and our power over, of course, Putin picks up, and nobody is talking about that. This is just
Right.
another example of how Trump has given the power of the great United States away. Just handed it to Putin.
Yeah, I mean, that's
Where's the story? Because I haven't seen the story. And I think within how we look at this story about what happened with Iraq and Iran, we have to talk about the press, because I don't think the press is handling it well either. It's reactive rather than active. I don't,
right.
and that's a little scary. And I don't know. Today, man, I'm all about what are we going to do about this mess? Because it's more than getting Trump out at this point, if you ask me. It's what's happening here, this madness that's being allowed to continue and grow, is partially because there's no third rail. It's too spread out. This may be something that's wrong that needs to be fixed in a hurry, and that editors somehow need to get together and say we need to fix this, rather than having Fox Channel control everything. I think it's a problem, and yeah, you may have something to say. You may not. I know I'm going off.
No, look, I mean, I think there was skepticism of the press about the Trump claims that there was an imminent strike on Americans coming, and that killing Soleimani was the only way to stop it. But you're right. I think in the larger sense, there's
a vacuum.
Yeah, there's a vacuum. I mean, look, as long as Trump is in office, there's really no way to prevent this. He's the commander in chief, and Congress has to really get tougher on the war powers. Presidents have been citing the authority of this 20-year-old resolution from 9/11.
They're supposed to approach that today, and I don't know if you saw right before we went on air that Bolton was, screaming about the War Powers Act, because he's one of those, the executive branches in everything,
right,
in the Constitution kind of thing. And I guess they're going to bring it up in the House today. And well, with what happened after they listened to the briefing on the events.
Yes.
Mike Lee came out, Republican Mike Lee, for all of you who don't know, who was basically a libertarian, I think, came out screaming like a banshee. I mean, really, the first time I've seen in the entire presidency of Donald Trump, a Republican really lose his cookies, and he lost his cookies and said this is the worst briefing he's had in the 9 years he's been in Congress. Rand Paul, you would have expected his reaction, but Mike Lee, do you think that's a little dam break that maybe others today, if they do that vote, will feel? Because I didn't hear anybody, by the way, really say, "Oh, this was a wonderful briefing," and yeah, they had the goods, and that's why they did it. I mean, everybody was freaked out, both sides in a way. What do you think about that?
Well, I think that the most important thing is that the briefing and how weak the rationale was for attacking at this time. So the quality of the briefing suggests the really big problem, which is how terrible things are at the moment. And yeah, I think you've got a couple of Republicans kind of now ready to really break on this war power stuff, but in a way it's all for naught. I mean, the War Powers Act is a law that the president needs to, sign. It's not going to get through the Senate, and even if it got to Trump's desk, he wouldn't sign it. So we're stuck with this thing for a while, and until there's another president,
right, a Democratic president,
and another Senate. Yeah. But it's really it's crazy for the U.S. to be using a 19-year-old thing written in the heat of 9/11 to be justifying, military action in West Africa, East Africa.
Yeah, no, it is. It's
starting a war with Iran, and
So let me take this thing about them not actually having imminent danger or anything to justify the killing at the time that they did it, and then what's happened since then, and maybe why Mike Lee was so enraged. And it's this, Matt.
Yeah, I'm listening.
The term obstruction of justice / impeachment comes to mind, because I think it's one thing if the president of the United States is playing funny with this impeachment deal because, presidents do what he did. What's the big deal? That's the Republicans' point of view, so to speak. But now they just saw the administration try and pull the same crap with their own senators. And, every once in a while the Senate rise up to its austere, the great Senate,
right,
the great body. And I think Mike Lee didn't like sitting in that room and knowing that they were obstructing truth. And he saw possibly that this is the MO of this administration. Don't tell anybody, they said. Don't talk about this. You'll be on the side of the Iranians if you bring this all to light, what we've said. I think that may give some Republican on the impeachment vote pause to maybe say, "Oh, wait a minute. He's trying it even on us." You got a thought there?
It's possible. Could be. Could be.
There we go.
That's our weekly could be.
But it is interesting, isn't it? Because, it's one thing for him to do it to everybody else and then to do it to you. Then you start to get like, wait a second.
I know, but, even Mike Lee, who's himself won't vote for impeachment, I think the safest bet is still that none of them are going to vote for impeachment, excuse me.
Well, he was impeached. You mean vote for...
I know, for removal from office.
For removal from office, okay.
I know what you mean. They've got to be pissed at some level that they got such a crappy briefing and that this thing is so half-assed and dangerous.
Yeah, I mean,
I think you're totally right. If they actually do anything about it, I'll be shocked.
Oh, gosh, I wish once I would be shocked. I'm hoping for shock. Every day I wake up and I read the news and I'm hoping for shock. I really am hoping for shock. It's something normal. So this whole thing happens and I do want to say that, where we are right now, as a result of all of the crap that's gone on with Trump and his handling of Iran, that the Iranians have absolutely ditched entirely the enrichment agreement. Therefore, they will be barreling towards nuclear proliferation, right? They expelled the Americans. The Iranians are unified. The Iraqis are unified, both against America. Then Trump brings in, we need to bring NATO in, which was hilarious, considering he hates
don't forget
NATO.
The fight against ISIS is
well,
too.
Yes, and that's on my list too. Yeah, right, yeah. Absolutely. And
right.
And so here we go with that again. Sometimes it makes you think, Matt, is he thinking, all of his good buddies who, have all of these special op people who are getting paid billions for going in and cleaning up the act when you pull the troops out. Maybe that's it. He's given, all his buddies, what's your name's brother, the Secretary of Education's brother.
Yeah.
He's,
I don't know. It seems a pretty roundabout way to get the money.
And Trump is getting a kickback from it.
Well, I think there are easier ways.
Well,
are
there?
True.
I mean,
there are easier ways.
Whatever, but anything you put out there in this crazy can't be crazy. It's just another idea because it's all so crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I mentioned Sniffles the Clown speech. I do want to make mention of that because you watched it, right? He's snorting and he's carrying on and he's slowed down and he's messing up words. Just want to say,
Look, I mean, he's a septuagenarian president. He's the oldest president ever, and he's clearly never released adequate medical records.
Something's not right.
Remember that crazy letter from his doctor?
Yeah, of course. Who then later said he was forced to write the letter. So. And then the second doctor,
who
the one who
knows
was
what
the
is
Trump.
going on with Trump's health?
Well, something is definitely is not okay there. So
even though he looks so great,
I don't think he looks so great. I think of his.
No, I'm being facetious.
Yeah. Well, besides the orange, this is okay. Mr. Comedy routine, his eyes, the bags under his eyes are the size of Baghdad. Bada bada bin.
Yeah, he's
not looking well.
This job takes a toll on the most fit men.
Right.
Bush, Obama.
But he's not working, so who are we kidding?
Right.
It's not like he's working. So have we covered it all? Have we said everything that needs to be said on that? Because we don't know what's going to happen. We mentioned the plane. I do want to bring that plane up again, the Ukrainian plane that was downed, and the fact that the Iranians refused to let anybody in to look at the black box and are saying, well, it was on fire before, but that's not what it shows. And what they did see, those who look at stuff like that, it does look like this thing was shot down, which would indicate to me they were sending more missiles out at some,
I mean, certainly plausible. I mean, look, there was a plane crash at JFK just a couple of days after 9/11 that, everyone's first reaction was that it was another act of terrorism. And,
well, this happened within hours, though, right? I mean, this was...
Yeah, it turned out not to be. But this is, a Ukrainian jet.
I mean, really.
Almost at the same time. Just drops out of the sky. It's very questionable. Sure.
And particularly since the plane was so young, 3 years old, I think, and it's like the one that has had no accidents and blah, 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 blah,
yes,
blah, blah, blah.
It seems very...
So I think there's more to that story as well. And, wow. You worry about becoming a conspiracy theorist, but you have to.
I know. You don't want to be, but it's...
it is crazy. All right, we move on. We move on to impeachment. Now, this should be interesting between you and I. So Nancy is still holding on to the Articles of Impeachment. And now the Democrats, of course, because who better to shoot themselves in the foot than Democrats, are buckling under the weight of all of this. This morning, as a matter of fact, your good friend, Cory Booker, was whining that this impeachment trial is going to hurt him, and we need to get this over with. I think it's already hurt. But honestly, why shouldn't she just keep holding on to them? Why do the Republicans want to move it so fast? And why shouldn't she slow it down? I'm sorry. I think she's at least until the State of the Union, so he's impeached and he has to give a State of the Union address. I think she would be smart to do that, but I don't know if she's got the one of the head guys in the House this morning came out and said we should send them over, but they're all getting hysterical because Democrats get hysterical. They just don't have the backbone of Republicans. So what are your thoughts?
I don't have strong ones. I mean, I can see the tactical advantage to, sitting on this as a way of pointing out the unfairness of the trial or, prolonging it. I mean, it doesn't help that the Democrats said that, it was getting him out of office was an imminent threat to the country, and then to sit on this. But,
well, I think there's an argument about that because it may be an imminent threat to the country. But we still have like 8 more months or so until whatever, but that's not even it. You take it one step further out from there and you say, if we need to stop him and we know if we send it over now, we're not going to stop him.
Right. That's the other argument.
I don't hear anybody making that argument, by the way.
I don't have strong feelings about the legal wisdom or the political wisdom of doing this.
It's making him crazy.
Of just sitting on this.
How about it's making him nuts? Isn't that worth it? Because maybe he'll implode.
Possible. Could be.
A thought to be made.
You are listening to the Halli Casser-Jayne Show. The Halli Casser-Jayne Show posts new podcasts Wednesdays, 3 p.m. Eastern at hallicasserjayne.com and is available wherever you listen to your podcasts. Find us on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, on all your favorite apps. You'll find the podcast on your Alexa device, too. Just say, The Halli Casser-Jayne Show. Oh, and come play with me on Twitter at The Halli CJ Show.
The Bolton thing, did we talk about that last week? I couldn't remember.
I don't think we did.
So Mr. Bolton, he's playing games, too. What's he up to? Why doesn't he just go ahead and do what he needs to do? Talk.
Well, I mean, you got a guy who's been, in very conservative politics since he was a teenager when he ran the Republicans at Yale and was an intern for Spiro Agnew. And, he's been doing this a long time. And he's super conservative and he hates the Democrats. And, He doesn't want to be seen as doing anything to help them, even though he's mad at Trump about the Ukraine stuff. He's probably so, over the moon about the Iran strike. I think he's trying to walk along. I'm just guessing here. I don't have any insight from reporting, but I think he's trying to walk a line where he's not helping the Dems, but wants to get out there that he was for letting the aid to Ukraine, and he was a sane voice on that. That's my guess, and so that's why I think he's always said, I need a subpoena to testify, but I'm not going to fight the subpoena. He's not going to be like Mick Mulvaney,
right, and
refuse the subpoena. Right. But he's not going to walk up there with just a written invitation.
So why don't they just subpoena him in the House?
Well, I don't know. They should just subpoena him now.
And they don't, and you wonder why. I mean, it could be that maybe they know something we don't know, and they're not sure about it. He's certainly a wild card. You don't know what he's going to say.
Yeah, and he could get up there and refuse to answer. He could get up there and say, "Look,
I don't think the refusing
Trump was wrong about Ukraine, but I don't think it's remotely impeachable. And you Democrats are a bunch of shits, and who knows what he's going to do when he gets there."
Well, I definitely think he's a wild card. I mean,
totally. I think Dems who think they're going to get a jackpot with him are
whistling.
Whistling.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. But you got to look at why he's doing what he's doing and how he's doing what he's doing and how the Dems are handling it as well. It's strange, but there's also the testimony. Was it Pence's secretary who came back in and added more testimony that was behind closed doors, that was classified, that they're sitting on? Do you know about that?
No.
Yeah.
Sorry, I missed that one.
All right. Well, it's not a big story. It's been kept sort of under wraps, but I think it's a story that's there. That you heard it here first, folks. If you hadn't heard it before, watch it, because there's something there. She's got something, and they brought her in. So that's why it seems to me that Nancy's got something cooking. That's what I think. Nancy's got something cooking.
Yeah, I think something's cooking here.
Yeah,
and Schiff and everybody. I think they're smart to put Slotnick out there this week. Mm-hmm. On the, she's one of the star freshmen.
She's a very smart woman.
Yeah.
Yeah, she intrigues me.
Yeah, she's interesting.
And in the same respect, I also want to talk about people like Collins and the same, and Mitt Romney, and the same old people they keep going to.
Press. I mean,
stop.
Yeah.
Like, just stop.
Let's just, look, they're not going to break from their tribe.
Right. And
anyone who's broken from their tribe is gone, Corker or Flake.
Right. But the reason I hate people giving them the press that they want. By the way, I hate people giving Lindsey Graham the press they wants. I call him media whore. I said, take off your red high heels. The other day I told him to stop getting on TV or go to Macy's, which is closing down in this wonderful economy we have. They're closing 150 more stores. They got like 3 left. Great economy. And go buy Perry heels and go on Hannity full time. I know you hate when I do that stuff.
Yeah, come on.
But the fact of the matter
he's an easy quote, and that is not a good tendency of the press, to just go the easy quote.
Well, stop following the same idiots and let's start getting the voices of some other people. You might find something different. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I agree.
It's always the same people on the talk shows on Sunday. It's
always.
What's the deal? Are they that?
I don't know. There are 100 senators and they go to the same 10.
Well, a friend of mine and I were talking about this too the other day, and I simply said that it seems to me that part of what's going on here is when everything is being run by cable now, cable news, MSNBC, CNN,
right,
whatever. And they are afraid to tick off anybody, that they'll lose them. So they go to the same people, kiss their whats, keep coming back, yada, yada, yada. Never push them far because they're afraid that'll be the end of that. And that's what's going on. It's because of news is entertainment.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, cable turns up the volume on every news story.
Oh, God, right, doesn't it? It's annoying.
Everything is breaking news.
Yeah,
and
right.
So when we really have an emergency,
Who
they
knows?
just
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you, and I totally agree. But that's what I wish for right now. That's one of the things is like stop going to Lindsay and to Collins and Romney. Well, I give him 5 seconds. First of all, he's boring, so who wants to listen to him anyway? So anyway, that's my thought. We're going to move on to election 2020, and
Okay.
I do want to talk about this because something did come up we talked about last week, and that was Biden and the Iraq vote, which last week didn't seem like such a big deal. This week, on the other hand, with what's gone on, it is a big deal, and Sanders is certainly playing it for all it's worth against Mr. Biden. So I don't know whether it's in the bubble that you and I are in as doing what we do, that we're aware of it, as maybe other people who vote aren't. But it certainly is now fuel for Sanders' fire. The story this week, as far as I'm concerned, on 2020 is there were a few, but the key one is now this week it's Sanders who's the press's favorite. He's going to win.
Right.
Yeah. Have you noticed?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of responding to polls and wanting to find a new narrative. Sure.
Yeah. And I don't see that happening. Do you see him winning?
I think it's unlikely, but he can play a long game. He's got a ton of money. I think he's got a pretty good structure across the country. I don't think it's impossible. I think it's unlikely.
The thing
I would put better odds on Biden, Buttigieg, and even Warren at this point.
I bring it up not just because of the he's the flavor of the week, but also because a lot of people think because of his followers was one of the reasons why Hillary lost. And he never did rein his followers in.
Oh, yeah. No, I think he...
and I think we need to talk about that.
I think that's right. Look, these primary challenges always hurt the nominee in the general election, whether it was George H.W. Bush or Jimmy Carter or Hillary. You get a long fight that goes all the way to the convention. It's bad. It's a lot out of your campaign. It really softens up your people who should be your easy supporters. It's tough. Right. And I think he's likely to do that again to Biden or Mayor Pete or somebody.
Yeah. And I think that's also very dangerous. I want to go to one.
And look, to be fair, it's his prerogative. I mean, he's running for office.
I understand that, but it's nevertheless.
He doesn't need to be ashamed for trying, but I do think the consequences for the nominee are bad, and he never really was able to get his supporters in line for Hillary.
Yeah, and I fear that coming on, and that's why I don't want to see anybody ginning him up if he doesn't necessarily deserve the press that he's getting for having ginned it up. I want to also talk about Biden in the respect that he's now neck and neck with Buttigieg and Sanders in Iowa, where he was so far behind. That's no small thing either, by the way. Not getting a lot of,
Oh, yeah.
So good for him.
No, look, if he were to win Iowa and then win New Hampshire, beating Sanders and Warren in their backyard, and then go into South Carolina.
He'll have South Carolina, where that's a given. If you
me. So, I think then they would be, whoever was still standing would have to really try to stop him in Nevada, which is an interesting state.
Yeah.
And so, I know, look, Biden's tortoise in the hare, right? He is.
It's fascinating.
I'm not sure it's quite tortoise in the hare because he was the front runner, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, it works. It works in a weird kind of way. It works. Can we bring on Mike Bloomberg?
Yes.
I hate to say it, but I think he has a shot.
Plausible. I think unlikely given the id of the Democratic Party. I think it's just, I know he's abandoned stop and frisk and other things, but
here's where I think.
But a tough sell. Tough sell.
He's already in 6th or 5th place. He's got this $10 million Super Bowl ad that he just purchased. Oh my God. Which made Trump purchase it, but it's going to be really interesting to see what he says at the Super Bowl. I'm fascinated by that, but I'm also fascinated by the fact that, he
he does bring conversation. People do talk about him. It's not like he's not there. People are talking now. They're definitely talking about him. They're talking about him on Twitter, on Facebook, on this. He does seem somewhat polarizing. I'll give you from where I'm looking, right? You either love him or you hate him. But the fact of the matter is, in Michigan, which is a state we should talk about, Bloomberg and Biden are the two who can beat Trump. That was as of this morning. And I find that interesting.
Yeah.
Michigan, which, by the way, John James raised more money than the Dem incumbent, Gary Peters. But Peters is maintaining a very slight lead in a state where they're just, I think Michigan is a state where they just said that nobody but Trump can be on the ballot.
Right.
You know?
Look, Bloomberg was, is a serious guy in addition to being, insanely rich. He does, I'm sure, drive Trump crazy because he's a real billionaire, without any gimmicks. He's never bankrupted a casino. He's an impressive guy and he's potentially strong. It's just, I do think it's tough in the party.
Yeah. But he's positioning himself, if Biden implodes, to be the one who can pull it off. And I think that's an interesting place for him to be spending his money. This is a guy who wants to make sure that Trump is out no matter what.
Yeah, I think he's definitely himself ready if Biden succeeds to just turn into a supporting role of spending a lot.
Yeah, that's a guy who's putting his money where his mouth is. You got to give it to him, right?
Yeah, look, it's incredible how much money he has.
Oh my God, yeah. And it's interesting also, two things are never raised about him. One is that he's Jewish.
Right.
Which I find interesting that he does. It's not an issue that's raised. And two is that there's always been a lot of talk that he's actually gay. And that hasn't filtered into this conversation.
Yeah, I don't think that's really much evidence for that.
But there it is. So I just thought that I would throw that out.
Yeah.
Can I bring up something that's politically incorrect?
Sure.
Oh, good. Just wanted permission. Pocahontas.
Yeah. We talked about this last week, right?
But you don't know where I'm going.
Okay, where are you going?
So here's where I'm going. I'm not going about where she's at and that she, because we did talk about it last week. I'm going into the fact that she's never talked about on Fox or anywhere without the word Pocahontas before her name. It's either Pocahontas, but it's Pocahontas. So why don't we just call Trump Geronimo?
Well, it's not as funny. I don't
know. In a way, it is because he is everybody's a Geronimo. Back in the day, it had multiple meanings, but one of them was you go off half cocked and you just bulldoze your way in, and it is it is in a. Imagine him in an Indian costume. If it's good for the goose, why isn't it good for the gander?
But it's devastating with her because she claimed the Indian.
Well, you don't know what so he's got skin like a redskin. Instead of calling him orange skin, call him a redskin. I know it's politically incorrect, but you know what? He put it out there.
Well, I don't mind about politically incorrect. I just think it's not well.
Well, come on, Mr. Comedian.
I just didn't think it was that funny, but I don't want to rain on your parade. Let me consider this. We'll come back to Toronto next week.
Okay. I'm telling you, it's all that I keep thinking about. It's like, again, it gets back to the Dems. They never answer right. There's got to be something out there that you can pull on Trump, well, whatever.
Well, what gets under his skin, bankruptcy.
Yeah, money. It's always money. Who cares about money? Hey, listen, before we were going on air, the U.S. Bar Association just issued a request for an investigation of Barr for Attorney General Barr for bias. The Bar Association is going to investigate Barr for bias. BBB.
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, never done before.
Now, not the American Bar Association.
The U.S. Bar Association.
Yeah, so that's, I believe predominantly African American.
But hey.
But very interesting. I'd love to hear more about it.
It was just breaking, so yeah.
Barr is, I know you're a huge fan of Barr. I don't want to disparage you in any way. I know you really,
This man makes me ill.
ill. He made me ill the first time he came around. Now he's making me more ill. Michael Flynn, they're recommending 6 months for lying to the FBI. If it were you or me, we would be in jail for the rest of our lives. And this was after he said he was going to cooperate, and then he pulled back everything, and it's only 6
right.
months.
I mean, originally they were recommending that he not do any time.
Right, but 6 months.
But then he stopped being so helpful.
Right, 6 months is not a very long time.
And the question is, like, why does he stop being helpful?
Why?
Do you just have a change of heart, or does he think his pardon is just awaiting him?
I'm sure somebody talked to him about something sometime, but there you go. It's certainly worth bringing up. Did you also know that the judge in the what's his friend's face? Who's going to jail in February? Who's waiting his sentencing? Roger Stone. Roger Stone's judge says she wants all the stuff that they got on him released.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, look that one up. That's interesting to me because there must be stuff there if she's willing to go there.
Yeah, haven't thought about Roger Stone in a while.
Both he and Flynn and somebody else are being sentenced February. Can't remember who it is, but February is a big month for the court to have a lot of fun sentencing these people. Let's talk about Duncan Hunter. For those of you who don't know, horrible man, California, he and his wife embezzling all sorts of money, Republican, and, deny, and then finally,
plea deal.
I pleaded out. Okay. He didn't, anybody else would have been thrown out of Congress. Well, that's it. Certainly Dems would have, not the Republicans. And they actually allowed him 6 weeks to collect his paycheck. And he just resigned yesterday, I think it was. But he got
it's unbelievable how they just let him hang there.
Well, they didn't just let him hang; they gave him money.
Right.
And as far as I'm concerned, that's just a complete and utter disgrace. As if things aren't disgraceful enough in Congress. I mean, that's just And don't worry, he'll show up working for somebody somewhere.
Yeah.
I
mean, it's really bad when your wife turns against you and testifies. That's never good.
Well, he couldn't care less about her. He'd try to pin it on her. Right. Who else I'm having a problem with? Texas, he's retiring. FBI.
Will Hurt. Yeah.
Yeah. Can we just discuss him for a minute? Have you noticed he's everywhere now?
Yeah. He is doing a lot of TV.
He's becoming a version of Lindsey Graham. He's in love with Trump, and Trump can do no wrong, and everything is right, and Iraq was right, and Iran is right, and impeachment is right, and
he's more a Romney. He's more like I'm troubled.
No, not anymore. You listen to him now. He's full blown. I'm for Trump. I'll stand with. I'm holding him up. They must be offering him a hell of a job if he does this, because he couldn't run again because he was going to lose his seat. So he's retiring, and he needs a job. Yeah. So if you want to see how it works in Washington,
he will get a good job.
He's going to get a great job, and he's, anyway, he makes me want to every time I see him, because I find it so utterly disgraceful. So Matt, this mess this country is in. Can we talk about that for 1 minute or so? I want to talk to you about the fact that as bad as all of this is, and it's terrible, 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 it just gets worse and worse and worse. And I'm it's the Republicans are horrible, but so are the Democrats. When the Democrats are willing to do whatever they, when they start talking, you better get the impeachment through, because after all, we may lose our seat if we don't get this out of the way in time. They're all horrible. This country is a mess. Nothing seems to be working appropriately in it. I'm scared. I'm truly frightened now, because I don't see I don't see any smart people in the government right now. I see cagey. I see, manipulative. I see self-serving. I see stupid. I see ignorant. But I don't see anybody of character. And if they're there, they're not smart enough or wily enough to take the bull by the horn and get control and be the statesperson that we need right now. I mean, let's not be alarmist, but this is going to get a lot worse before it gets better. Civil war. I don't see how you purge this, how you get rid of this. And I think we should talk about it for a minute. Do you have anything to say about that?
Well, I know where you're coming from, but, let's imagine it's 2021 and Trump has left office, either impeached or in a stretcher or he's been defeated or whatever. But he's not in office anymore. Then I think the world looks a lot different, right? I mean, we're still very divided, and the parties are, deeply divided, but there isn't the same sense of, impending doom.
See, I don't see that, because I'm not so sure that Trump is the entire problem. He's easy to focus on and to gin everybody up with.
No, yeah, I agree. I don't think he's the entire problem.
Right. But
I don't think it feels quite as,
you don't think it'll feel as quite
existential
until if he's out of office, you think?
I mean, we'll go back to, what it was like with Obama, right? I mean, in the sense you'll have very divided, partisan alignments, but it won't
like
have
this?
the same level of crazy.
Yeah. I mean, this is beyond anything that I could even have imagined. And it filters through society, I guess. That's another place I want to take the conversation, because in my everyday life, I see people who are not, who don't think they have to play by any rules anymore. And, I'm going to do what's right for me. And everybody seems to be hysterical. I don't know if you're finding that, but I'm certainly finding everybody I talk to is hysterical, and it's like, oh my God, and everything is bigger than life. Wow, it just seems really scary out there right now. And I just, I don't know how, it has to be purged. I mean, every major war we've had in the 20th century and 21st century, it comes out of having, it was the only way out, It's like there's evil everywhere and we have to purge the evil. Am I crazy? I mean, it just seems really out of control right now.
Well, I hear you. I mean, I think there are still hopeful signs. If you see Jim Fallon's book about, towns across America that are reviving themselves in bipartisan ways. I think there's a lot of normal stuff going on in state houses. I mean, a lot of bad stuff too, but it's, but it's more normal. I think a lot of this is about Washington and Washington's peculiar dysfunction. But, if you look at other institutions across the country, higher ed or municipal governments or, the military or other things, I think it's really national politics that's more deeply broken than the society as a whole.
I hope you're right.
We're more than Washington. So, but I agree. It's a crisis proportions in Washington.
Yeah. And I don't know how you fix it. So there you go. And if it's as corrupt as it seems to be, there is no fixing. I mean, the Republicans don't want to do anything to stop the crazy that happened with either Putin or whomever else was. Now Facebook says it's not going to stop the bad ads because they support, he supports Trump. It's like, I don't see how you stop it. That's the thing, because it's the people who have the power. This reminds me of Salvador, by the way, 1981.
Right, where you spent time and you know it well.
No, I'm really serious. It feels the same.
Yeah.
It's the people have absolutely no control over what's going on. And the fights among, the top of the realm. I needed to bring it up. So, but let's end on a high note, which is really a low note. A high note, which is a low note. The royals, Meghan and Harry.
Yeah, very interesting.
Wow.
Escape from Buckingham Palace.
I put up there that there's a new movie. It's gonna. What did I call it? It called. Oh my God! Why can't I think of it right now? Meghan, the princess. What did I say? It's a new Hallmark movie, is what I first said.
Yeah, the Runaway Princess.
The Runaway. Yeah, I mean, this is really fascinating and insane and. This just goes to show you how crazy the world is and how the world is out of control. Even Queen Elizabeth can't keep,
Well, I think they saw their lives with decades of boredom awaiting them, of ribbon cutting ceremonies and sitting on their velvet butts and,
And there wasn't enough money involved. They only get 5% or something towards their...
Yeah, I mean, it's a sort of,
Yeah, but this is more than that, sweetie. This is about her, I believe, Meghan not wanting to be, she needs to be the star, and she couldn't be the star if her husband wasn't going to be the king, and the second role wasn't good enough, so she's going to Hollywood and take it on the role there.
Well, that's possible, but I can also take them at their word that they don't want to do this, and I can kind of understand that, I mean, it seems like the perfect life being a royal, but it really isn't.
No,
we saw how unhappy Diana and Prince Charles were. And,
it's a horror.
If you've seen The Crown, it's not a barrel of laughs. And
except to say some wear it better than others. And it seems to me that if you look at it from that perspective, I mean, Elizabeth has been remarkable, queen, but I also think that Will and Kate fill the role
very much. Yeah. I mean, look, I'm an American. I think royalty is kind of crazy and antiquated, but it's what the British still want. So they have it with their ever diminishing country after Brexit. I mean,
it's interesting though, because somebody said also, I don't know where I heard it or read it, that the problem with what's going on with Meghan and Harry right now is it's the same kind of crazy as Brexit, and can have the same effects on the UK. If you start tearing away at the monarchy, then you start tearing away at the very fabric of a country. Then what are they left with? And this is so huge and what have you. But
that's true. I mean, they've had abdications before.
Yeah, but they had a major, famous,
big one.
Yeah, and they survived that. So, but these are different times. Anyway, it's fascinating. Fascinating.
Yeah. No, look, I'm kind of rooting for them, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm rooting for I'm rooting for Kate and Will's. And,
I'm rooting
that
for
it all
of
keeps
them.
going the way it used to go. And
I mean, let Kate and the prince do
their thing.
Do their thing, and let the other two live in a loft in Soho if they want. I mean,
I don't like her. I don't like her.
Why not?
I don't like her because I don't like the way she separated the brothers, two brothers who were so close, and she came in and she just ripped the two apart, and I hate that. I just find
you think she's sort of Yoko.
Yeah, I think she's the power hungry.
Interesting.
Manipulated, whatever. And when and to land in a position like that, Matt, and then make mincemeat out of it. Which is what she did before they were forced to take their Christmas break and go away so that the press wouldn't eat her alive. And this is their response to that. She's been very tough. She's not been gracious away, but she did separate those two brothers. And I don't think that's a good thing. They were all they had for so long. And it's just sad to see them, broken apart that way. So anyway, that's a lousy high note.
Yeah, that was your high note. Not so high.
When it's in perspective of everything that's gone on in this country. So anyway, do you have
okay.
Yeah, well, so you have anything you want to tell us you think is coming that we should keep our eyes up for before we close?
Yeah, I would say watch what the Iranians do next, and it may not be anytime soon, but let's see. And watch Bernie. I think watch Bernie if he's really back and ready to win some primaries.
Sounds like a plan.
All right.
Well,
I will see you next week. Good night, Gracie. All right.
Thank you for tuning in to the Halli Casser-Jayne Show, a production of Resec LLC. The Halli Casser-Jayne Show posts new podcasts Wednesdays, 3 p.m. Eastern, and is available at HalliCasser-Jayne.com and on all your favorite apps. Be sure to visit us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and follow me on Twitter at The Halli CJ Show. Until next time, this is Halli Casser-Jayne.